Wow, broccoli spears.
Oh, they need it.
Uh-huh. I'm Sohla at the New York Times Cooking Studio. If you've been following along, this is part of a little mini series all about the basics of cooking. Today we're going to be getting to know this guy a little bit better. I think one of the best vegetables there is out there. We're going to do a really simple blanched broccoli, a really fun broiled broccoli, and we're going to do a raw broccoli. So let's broccoli. Broccoli is actually in the Brassicas family, which is related to cabbage. In the beginning, we just had wild cabbage, and from wild cabbage came Brussels sprouts and broccoli and collards and kale. Everything you learned today could apply to anything in that family of vegetables. And everything we're gonna make today is really quick, really affordable, perfect to add to your weeknight rotation. Broccoli. Wow. When you go to the store, broccoli is often on ice, and that is really important to keeping it really fresh. If they're not like held super, super cold, the broccoli stalks turn into something called lignin, which is the same stuff in wood. So that's why you'll often find your broccoli on ice. When you're shopping for broccoli, look for tight, dark green heads. If they start to look yellow, that means they're a bit old and they're gonna be a little bit bitter and maybe a little bit mealy. With produce in general, the difference between organic and non-organic is how it's farmed, the use of pesticides, the use of fertilizers. If you can get organic, go for it, but it is expensive. So think about your priorities at home. If you're picking and choosing, I usually go for things that have no skin. So if you're gonna peel away something, then it's not as big of a deal to not have organic. But something like broccoli, where you're gonna eat the whole thing, I try to get organic when possible. But once again, you gotta do you. So for our first broccoli adventure, I'm gonna show you how to blanch broccoli. So it's like perfectly crisp, tender. And then we're gonna toss it in a really savory sesame, miso, soy vinaigrette. So we're gonna start by cutting our broccoli into florets. Broccoli, it looks like a tree. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. The florets are the fluffy part of the tree, and then the stalk is like the tree trunk. So this recipe is using the florets. So I just took off the tree tops, right? I'm gonna put my trunks away. Don't waste this though, there's so much you can do with it. Trim off the woody end, peel, and then chop it up, and it's fantastic. Okay, so then I want my florets to be about this big, so after you take them off, just get in between there and break it up. So blanching is a really great technique for any green vegetable. I mean, you can blanch other things, but it really highlights the texture of a green vegetable the best because we're gonna cook it very fast and very hot. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna be really, really crisp, but just a little tender in the core. I used to have this job at a cafe where I had to get there at like 4 o'clock in the morning and do a lot of blanching and prepping for like all the salads they served later on. And my favorite thing was blanching greens. And I would just stare into the pot. It's pretty green right now, but it'll go like right in front of your eyes. It's gonna become like super bright green. That's how you know it's blanched. So you wanna make sure that your water is heavily seasoned. Broccoli is only gonna be in here for a little bit. So you wanna go for it. And you're gonna taste your salty water. If you're trying to figure out how salty it needs to be, you've gotta think about how long something's gonna be in the water. So peas, spinach, it's gonna be in the water for just like the briefest, like 30 seconds. It needs to be super, super salty. Something like green beans or broccoli might be in there for a couple minutes, moderately salty. Something like potatoes, that might be in there for 15 minutes, like a soup that maybe went too far. When I first started cooking, I never salted the water enough because I'd be really shy and I'd go like this. And then like my sous chef would come around and just do this. So don't be scared. That's good. When you're having a margarita and you get a lot of rim, that's how salty you want this to be. We want our water to come up to like a very vigorous, active boil. This is gonna be like a hot and fast cooking method. Also, another thing to remember when you're blanching, you need a lot of boiling water because you don't want the temperature to come down too much. While my water comes up, we're gonna make our little dressing. So here I've got some toasted sesame seeds. They are technically like purchased toasted, but whenever you get a toasted nut or seed, it's good to refresh it. They toasted it a long time ago, you know? You wanna give it a little heat, bring it back to life. And you're just gonna Warm it up until you see the oils kind of come out, and it's gonna get kind of aromatic, just like when you're toasting spices. If you've got raw sesame seeds, go for like a medium low temp and take it further so you can get a full toast on there. All right, our sesame seeds, they're nice and warm, they're nice and aromatic. We're gonna pop it into I'm losing some sesame overboard. We're gonna pop it into a mortar and pestle. We're not looking for a puree, we're not looking for a powder, we just want like a mix of half crushed, half whole, and it's gonna stick to our broccoli really nice. Okay, so this is good. We've got a mix of like partially crushed seeds, and we're gonna mix this up with the rest of our dressing ingredients. Now I'm going in a really big bowl because this is gonna be the final bowl where we toss everything. Other ingredients in here, just a little bit of oil, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, and miso. And I'm just gonna whisk this up. And what's gonna be nice, since we like partially ground some of the sesame seeds, it's really gonna get like lost in the little nooks and crannies of the florets. Now that's our dressing, and I'm gonna set this aside. Our water is rolling. Whew. Now I'm gonna make my ice bath. The goal is to get it cooked as quickly as possible and cooled as quickly as possible. So you want a big bowl with a lot of ice. I also add salt because salt makes ice even colder. So we're gonna have a very, very, very cold ice bath. Now, we're gonna dump all our broccoli in. Ooh, that handle got hot. Hold on, I got sweaty. Okay, broccoli going in. And this is gonna happen, I don't know if you saw, but as soon as I put the broccoli in, it got brighter in color. Now you can see, even though I had so much boiling water, as soon as I put the broccoli in, the boiling kind of stopped and it just cools down. Now the florets became a very dark green right away. The little stalks, you can tell, they haven't had their full transformation time yet. They're still a little bit white. I think by the time this water comes back up to a boil, it'll be ready to evacuate. This tool is called a spider, and it's really good for quickly pulling things out of hot oil or hot boiling water. So green. Now, if you didn't put it in an ice bath, you would totally lose that green. It would just continue cooking. This is called shocking, and this step halts the cooking and keeps the broccoli at this perfect crisp, tender texture and this bright, vibrant green situation. All right, once you get everything in there, get your hands in there, because sometimes you can have all of the broccoli like in one spot and it's still gonna be a little warm in the middle. You don't wanna leave it in there forever because you're gonna like waterlog the broccoli and it will end up becoming very bland. So once it's thoroughly cold, and you can just pull it out and tell, it's still a little warm at the stalk after I pull it out, so it's just gonna need maybe another minute, and once you know it's like fully cold, we're gonna drain it. So we're gonna make sure this is really nice and dry before we toss it in our dressing. Otherwise, our dressing's gonna get watery. The treetops are really, really nice and dark green, and then the little chunks, mini chunks, have kind of become glassy, and that's how you know you've got a really nice, crisp, tender situation happening. Okay, dry, dry, dry. All right, I feel good about that. We're gonna toss it with our dressing, and I'm gonna season this up with a little salt and pepper to taste. I'm gonna start with pepper, and I'm gonna wait on the salt because we salted our blanching water, plus we've got miso and soy in here, so we might not need very much salt at all. Now you see the benefit of the big mixing bowl. I can like get in there and like fold and toss and keep it really gentle. If you have a small bowl, you're overworking your whatever you're trying to mix, or you're under mixing. Okay, let's taste, see how our salt is. I actually don't think I need extra salt. I'm gonna do a bit more pepper. Then we're gonna plate it up. So here you have our sesame broccoli. This recipe is by Kate Chun. It's great on its own, but it's also gonna be perfect accompaniment to the salmon we made in the last episode, to the roast chicken we made in another episode, some butter pilaf with some crispy eggs that we made in some previous episodes. Check them out. Okay. Really crunchy, savory, nutty, and I feel like this is something that's actually gonna taste better as it sits in the fridge. So I would like double this and have sesame broccoli all week. So there you have a super quick way to make a broccoli that doesn't suck. Now I'm gonna show you how to make a broccoli and quinoa spoon salad. This is gonna use raw broccoli. When I developed this recipe, I didn't realize how controversial raw broccoli was gonna be. but I made the mistake of going into the comment section of the recipe. There were so many people who were so upset that it was raw broccoli. They thought it was a mistake, they thought it was a typo, but no, it is raw broccoli. And there's a lot of acid in this dressing, so it's gonna kind of almost like cook it a little bit. This is one of those salads that gets better as it sits. All of that dressing's gonna seep into the fluffy florets, and it's gonna be delicious. It's just like in Spanglish where she said, just try it on. Just try this salad on. So we're gonna start with some quinoa. I like quinoa because it is a complete protein and it cooks up relatively quickly compared to something like farro. But use whatever you've got. This also works really well with brown rice because it gives it a nice chew. And we're gonna cook it using the pasta method, which means we're gonna cook it in boiling water just like you cook pasta. What's great with this method of cooking any grain is that you don't need to know any ratios. You just need to boil a bunch of water, throw your stuff in there, and cook it until it's tender. So the first thing we're gonna do is rinse off our quinoa. Quinoa oftentimes is sold pre-rinsed and it'll say that proudly on the bag. If it does not, it's very important to rinse your quinoa because the outside of it contains something which can make it very bitter and soapy if you don't rinse it off. It's just something that the quinoa has there to protect itself from people eating it. But we're smart. We rinse our quinoa. If you don't have a fine mesh sieve, I recommend getting one. There's a lot of uses for it. But if you don't want to commit to that, that's fine. Just look for pre-washed quinoa because you can't do this in a regular colander because it's just going to fall through. So we have our water at a rolling boil. Now the quinoa is going to take about 15 minutes to cook, something to think about in your seasoning level of the water. So you don't want this as salty as the broccoli water. You want it to be closer to how you season potato water. We need a bit more. Here we go. This is going to take about 15 minutes. It's going to be plump. And that is exactly how much time I need to chop everything up. The first thing we're going to do is make our dressing. I kind of wanted it to have like a honey mustard vibe, really perky to, cut through the nuttiness of the quinoa. The recipe says 1 head of broccoli, but every head's a little bit of a different size. So you're going to taste and adjust the seasoning. So I'm going to add the juice of half a lemon. To this I'm going to add some mustard, Dijon, and now the honey. This is a really good honey mustard vinaigrette just to use for all kinds of things. And now a little apple cider vinegar. Lemon juice is going to give you citric acid, but vinegar is going to give you acetic acid. So that hits your tongue in different parts. So that's what's going to make this really simple salad more interesting. There is a traditional vinaigrette ratio that they teach you in culinary school that's like 1 part acid, 3 parts oil, and I think it's completely wrong. I think it's way too much oil. So I personally prefer something closer to 50-50. It really depends on what you are dressing. Okay, so we're gonna chop our broccoli. We got a big stemmy guy, so we're gonna use all of that stem, and I'm gonna show you how to get the most of it. This part is always quite woody, so we're gonna trim that off. And you're just gonna keep trimming it until it stops feeling tough. Okay, so now when you look at the cross section, you can see this outside where it's like yellow and thick. That's the tough part. And everything in the middle of that is going to be really nice and tender. That's going to be like a delicate heart. So we're going to trim off the outside. You can do that with a peeler, but I actually think I'm going to do it with a knife because it is kind of thick. And you just keep trimming until you see that glassy, tender core. Now this outside bit that's really tough, I wouldn't try to eat that. I don't really recommend using any cruciferous or brassicas vegetable for stock because it gets so farty. Some things are just meant to be compost, We just want to chop this really finely. It's a spoon salad. You want everything to fit on your spoon. And we're just going to go in there. This is a really nice make-ahead salad. You don't want to run your knife through it over and over again because then it just gets too small, too bitty. You don't want to fully lose the texture here. You want some crunch. But it is important to get it nice and small because if it is too big, that's when it's going to feel like that you're eating a crudité platter vibe. You don't want that. See, so we're going through it this way, kind of flattening it out, going through it this way. It's a spoon salad. It's got to fit on the spoon. Let's taste this quinoa. So it's been about 10 minutes, but I can see already they've kind of uncurled. So let's see. maybe it's ready. That is ready. It's perfect for me. So I'm actually gonna stop, and I wanna rinse it under cool water so that we can mix it all together without making all our veggies hot. So we've got our quinoa. I'm just gonna keep chopping, and then it's all gonna come together. When I cut an apple, you go around the core, take off these little cheeks, nibble on this bit later, and we're gonna go for another chop. Spoonable pieces. Wow. Now, for a little bit of crunch, I've got some toasted pecans, but this is one of those salads where you can do whatever the hell you want. Some pepitas would be nice in here, walnuts broken up. I've got a little bit of cranberries, dried cranberries. I love dried cranberries because they're sweet and tart, and a little bit of cubed up cheese. These are the things I want in almost every salad. So we're gonna toss this up. I don't know if this bowl is gonna be enough. So we don't have enough room to groove. So maybe this is a big salad. And then we're gonna add our quinoa, toss, taste, and then see if we need any adjustments. Taste and think about it. Do you want more acid? Do you want more honey? It's a big salad. It is a really big salad, but this is gonna hang out in your fridge and you're gonna eat it for a few days. I really love this salad. You get crunch from the broccoli and the nuts. You get chew from the quinoa, little hit of cheese, and it's raw broccoli, but it's still super flavorful and not sad. Please enjoy this not sad salad. And just like that, not sad broccoli salad. Broccoli, just like all of the vegetables related to cabbage, can really handle some char. It doesn't get bitter, it actually gets sweet. But it's about finding this right balance between getting a lot of char without overcooking it. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. And we're gonna top it with some fun stuff. We've got our broiler preheated. We want really, really intense dry heat. And I'm gonna pop a sheet tray right under the broiler right now, so the sheet tray can get really hot as well, so that we're gonna get heat from the top and heat from the bottom. We're gonna prepare a little nut topping to go on our broccoli. So we're gonna toast our nuts in a skillet with a little bit of oil. Now when you're toasting nuts from raw, you wanna start in a cold pan and let everything come up together, because nuts do take a bit of time to toast all the way to their core. And you can use any combination of nuts and seeds here. So I'm using some cashews, some pecans, some pepitas, and a little bit of sesame seed. I put it in a cold pan with some olive oil, and we're on like medium heat, and we're just gonna stir. It's also gonna really flavor the olive oil, so we're gonna have like a really nutty oil, and our nuts are gonna get really nicely toasted, olive oily. Now this is gonna gently sizzle in this olive oil, and in the meantime, I'm gonna prep my broccoli. You wanna keep an eye on this and give it a toss like every 30 seconds so it heats through evenly. You're gonna know it's there when it's golden and it smells really toasty. So now I'm gonna show you how to cut the broccoli into spears. This is the way I cut broccoli most of the time because it's an easy way to use the whole thing in one dish. We're gonna start by trimming off this woody stem, and you can see, take a look, you can see again where that tough part is, and I'm gonna peel that off with a peeler. Now don't forget to stir your nuts. Wow, multitasking. And you can see where it starts to look almost a little translucent. That's where you know it's gonna be tender. Yeah, this is my favorite broccoli preparation. So even if you have very fresh broccoli, you'll only need to peel at least a little bit. And depending on how old your broccoli is, you might need to peel a lot. And if you just keep peeling and it still looks woody, then maybe that stem's past its prime, you know? It's okay. Sometimes if you've had broccoli in the fridge for too long, it starts to flower and you'll get like little yellow flowers on the outside. I do still cook it. It might not be the best tasting broccoli, might be a little bit bitter, might be a little tough, but this is a good method to rescue some not so awesome broccoli. Okay, so I think my nuts are actually good to go, so we're gonna pause on prepping our broccoli, finish this up. It smells toasty. It looks golden. So now I'm gonna season very, very generously with salt. Nuts need a lot of salt. And I'm gonna add some coarsely cracked black pepper. We want the black pepper to get a little time with the heat. Black pepper is really interesting. It like really transforms depending on how you treat it, how you grind it. Giving it a little time in direct heat, kind of like when you're making cacio e pepe. You wanna toast your peppercorns. It's gonna give it a lot more oomph. Just needs about 30 seconds in that fat. And now we can add our dates. I'm just using a little bit of medjool dates that have been torn for a little sweetness, but any dried fruit will work here. So get in there and kind of break up the dates. And it's gonna give us like little clumpies, little sweet clumpies, sweet nutty clumps. I'm gonna finish this with a splash of lemon juice, and that's our topping. Lemon juice is gonna just brighten everything up, add a little balance, and before you yell at me about putting acid in a cast iron pan, as long as your pan is thoroughly seasoned, there is no worry. You can boil tomato sauce in there, you can do anything. It's just about whether or not your pan is seasoned. Once it's seasoned, it is totally non-reactive, so just don't worry, guys. So to make spears, I like to start by cutting the stalk in half, just like that, right before you get to the tree tops, and then we'll break it open. So kind of cracks at a natural place, which I think is really nice. And what we're doing is we're just gonna see where the broccoli like stems naturally are, and we're just gonna cut them into these spears. And it's basically, we're taking like a really cheap, ordinary broccoli, and you're turning it into broccolini, baby. We're gonna wash our broccoli, and then we're gonna thoroughly dry it. Drying is a really important step because we want browning, char, and what's the enemy of brown? Wet. Yes. To get this broccoli really dry, I love to use a salad spinner. One of my favorite kitchen things. You don't want to fill it up more than halfway. The veggies need room to groove in there. Otherwise, it's just going to stay wet. And you know, don't you feel like you're on a boat? It's so fun. You know, one of those boats where you go, it feels fun. Okay, so give it a spin, dump this. We're gonna give it another spin until we get it really nice and dry. Okay, if you don't have a salad spinner, you can become the salad spinner. You wanna get a really big towel or even a pillowcase. This is a little like less delicate, so you might break some spears. Don't get crazy. You might have to do it in batches, and then it's gonna get water all over your TV and your ceiling and all of that, but your broccoli's gonna char. Wow, huh? Whoa. And you just spin, and then it'll be dry. Did we lose any broccoli? No. Okay. That actually, it worked better than the salad spinner. Amazing. Whew, I'm tired now. Okay, we're gonna oil this up. Very important. Take your time tossing it, making sure that every nook and cranny of broccoli gets a little rubbed down, because that's gonna help transfer the heat and make sure that our broccoli browns very quickly. I'm also gonna add a bit of salt at this point. And we do a gentle toss and massage situation. A lot of folks yell at me when I ask them to get a bowl to do this because they just want to toss things on a sheet tray. First of all, we preheated the sheet tray, so you can't do that. You need to be in and out of that oven fast. But even if you weren't, I hate tossing on the sheet tray because you will just end up with a lot of oil left on the sheet tray that'll just burn and leave like kind of an acrid flavor on whatever you're cooking. See how I'm tossing? This is all going to be left behind here. You don't want that on your tray. Something to think about. Every time you open an oven, you lose like 25 to 100 degrees. You spend all this time preheating it, you want it to stay hot. So we're gonna move quickly in and out of the oven. Keep all that heat where you want it to stay. Did we get color on the bottom? Yeah. sweet and crisp and a little bit tender, but the core is really nice and crisp. And I really like how the florets have a bit more crunch happening. And then the nuts and the dates, and this is such a good side. It's so delicious. I hope you guys try it. One final broccoli before you're off and broccoliing on your own. So this is my favorite after school snack growing up. I would make this for myself almost every day. So I'm gonna give this a rinse, and we're gonna let the water cling to the broccoli. The water that's left inside the florets is gonna be what helps it steam in the microwave. This is the opposite of when we did our broiled broccoli. You want that little bit of moisture. It doesn't take a lot, and it's gonna help our broccoli steam in the microwave. I'm gonna pop this in there. Depending on your microwave, it's gonna take a different length of time, so just keep an eye on it. Okay, Kraft singles, grew up with them. We're gonna finish it with a little bit of cheese. This little bit of cheese is what got me to eat a whole plate of broccoli, so my mom did not care. I was a strange kid, so I like to fold it, and we're gonna make tiny squares, and then we can put a tiny, tiny square on each floret. I really was a strange child. I did this so much, and it was so important in my life that I've written multiple articles about it. That took about 2 minutes in this microwave. Bright green and steamy. While it's hot, I'm gonna sprinkle it with a little bit of salt. And then I would precisely place a little bit of cheese on every single floret. You need even distribution. It's all about that precision. You can't just slap a slice on there. If I had tweezers as a child, I would have done this with tweezers. So I'm gonna pop it back in, just a quick zap to melt that cheese. Broccoli and cheese. Each broccoli has the perfect amount of cheese. I hope this episode showed you how not sad broccoli is. It's quick, it's easy, and there's so much you can do with it, and it's everywhere. Go get some broccoli and broccoli today.